All right.
Ready?
Yep.
All right. Here we go. Is it like officially live?
We're officially live.
Okay. All right. Um, Hail cheaters. Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. We are doing a live recording today. I guess this is the first time you and I have actually done well, we've done in person before,
Mm-hmm.
but in person with like the new setup on YouTube. It's all new and different. We're also not usually next to each other like this. We've done some
No.
like London trip side by
Yeah.
sides, but
You're
otherwise
familiar
not.
with the,
Yeah.
the wedding photographer sort of a thing of like, you're going to have to get close together, like closer than
Yeah.
you're comfortable doing just to
Yeah.
make the shot.
Yeah, you were
So we're
saying
just
it's
stand
like
really close.
the man of constant sorrow.
Yeah. Oh, brother, we're
oh
out.
brother,
We're
we're
out.
out thou. Yeah,
And
exactly.
speaking of brothers, we're here with producer Dave.
I am a man.
There we go.
I don't know the rest of the words. Nice to see you all.
Right on. So we're here to talk about our terrible game week 8s.
Yeah.
I think I'm the only one of the three of us who had Mo Salah today. So I experienced some joyful emotion
redemption.
on Sunday.
Yeah. Well, you ended up with what, 8, 10, 12 points all told?
12 points from Mo. Yeah. So then the great regret is it's always in hindsight. Well, obviously I should have been more courageous and I should have captained Mo Salah instead of Haaland. So one thing we're going to have to talk about on this episode is, yeah, Haaland has 3 blanks in a row. Where, for all of the people who didn't believe the theory of no Rodri, no De Bruyne is really going to eat away at Haaland's
That was you.
points potential. Yeah, and then some people are saying it was me. However, it is Saints next week for Man City. So we there's no way out for Haaland owners.
No,
once you think you're going to get out, Southampton pulls you back in.
It's tricky though, because I think the question now is, in a vacuum, loading up on Man City players ahead of the Saints match would make a lot of sense, but it's weirdly, I still don't feel confident they're going to keep clean sheet even against Saints. Like I feel like somehow they're going to have one moment where they just get sloppy and concede a goal, and I also don't really know what midfielder I would have. I mean, it may be that you have to wait until the Champions League this week to see if, like I was saying, like if Bernardo Silva doesn't start in the Champions League, like he might be someone to target. I mean, if Foden doesn't start in the Champions League, I don't know if that makes me feel better or worse about him starting at the weekend.
Yeah, there are a few paths for me to get Foden without being at the expense of like a premium mid, where the whole Arsenal Bournemouth match is another thing that we're going to have to unpack. But Saliba owners now basically have a free roll on a cheaper defender, assuming you don't want to stick with Arsenal defense. And I don't think we can make a real case for that right now. But that is a great place to make money to upgrade, in my case, Anthony Gordon to somebody like Foden.
Right.
But we're still waiting for Foden to actually do something this season. You were just reading about the COVID conspiracy.
I don't know if it's a conspiracy, but someone in our replies said that Foden recently had COVID and that he's still recovering from it, and that he may potentially have long COVID.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Well, yeah. So we're not doctors.
but
Dave, are you a doctor?
No, but I play one on the podcast.
Dr. Dave. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess that would actually be a rational explanation. We're trying to figure out what's happening with Foden.
Yeah.
You're like, there's something going on. But it's been happening for years. So has he had long COVID for years, maybe?
Yeah.
I mean,
is he patient zero is what we need to figure out.
But last year, he was starting matches this early in the season, right? Like his FPL returns last season are actually pretty solid. I think they have double-digit goals and assists last year, somewhere in that range at least.
I mean, PFA Player of the Year, it's hard to deny. No, we're not here to talk about Foden's talent level. We're here to talk about the mystery of what's going on at Manchester City. And like that performance against Wolves felt in some ways similar to the performance against Arsenal, where they really had to hammer away at a good defensive performance from Wolves until they finally got the breakthrough at the very end. Also, it felt a little bit like City playing Fulham 2 weeks ago, where the chances that Wolves got were on the counter and were pretty good chances. And one of them they finished and the other they simply didn't. So it could be looking a lot worse for City right now on the table. But Liverpool now 1 point ahead. Can we start talking about Liverpool as like title contender? I mean, not like it's far-fetched to imagine that this stacked team would be title contenders, but Arsenal are just like quickly fading away from this discussion. Now we're back to the glory days of City versus Liverpool.
Yeah, and I think this was the match, the Arsenal Bournemouth match, and I guess let's do actually. You know what? Let's do a little reset here.
I'm kind of
Okay.
freestyling
Yeah,
here. Yeah.
I enjoy your freestyling, but we put together this nice running order, and I
Okay.
think that we should try to stick to it.
Let's
So
do it.
let's kick things off. So game week 8 kicks off with the Spurs West Ham match on Saturday morning. You and I go to Smithfield Hall.
Yeah.
Meet up with a listener. That was nice.
Yeah, shout out to FPL Rock
Mhm.
on Twitter. Darren, wonderful guy. Really
Yep.
enjoyed chatting with him. He's been
Yeah.
and seen football played all over planet Earth. So it's
Yeah.
just interesting sort of hearing what he's seen and also his FPL thoughts. He runs some FPL content out of a podcast in Cuba.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
some Spanish
Yeah.
content.
So that was very cool. So shout out to Darren. Thanks for coming out. And the scene is always good at Smithfield Hall. It's a West Ham supporters bar as well as a Manchester United bar.
Right.
So we walked into great sorrow, and then we emerged victorious with a very Manchester United fans just can't understand how they got away with it, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that it was kind of right. So so the match on Saturday morning though was pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
I think you had a little bit of Saka drama, which we could talk about more in a second. But one option was to move Saka to Son, which that was kind of the only move that really would have worked out this week. I
Yeah.
guess you did get a Foden assist late, right? But like that's not 4 points, not that significant. But I think what was kind of the bigger news was that you had Poro blank, Brennan Johnson blank, and Solanke blank in a four goal Spurs match, which I feel like sort of that like it just the whole vibe this week was a real post international break, like some shaky. I thought the matches today, for example, were really like surprisingly low quality. I thought I mean the Spurs or not the Spurs, the Chelsea Liverpool match I thought was really foul heavy, and the Man City Wolves was just odd. Like
Yeah.
I just felt like it was such a, especially the second half. It was just like a real slog, and
Yeah.
we've seen a lot of that with Man City recently.
Yeah, you're looking for much more dynamism from Man City. They seem to just insist that they can pass through any low block, but ultimately, I think they just need more players, be it Grealish, Doku, Savino, who can just beat a man. And that's just to create something in the box, which makes it even more confusing as to why Foden's rollout has been so slow, because he is really good at operating in those tight spaces, and he could certainly help. Haaland had precious few touches, one or two moments that could have easily been goal scoring opportunities, but you're left feeling like not awesome about Haaland and this City team despite that victory.
Yeah. So let's get into. I mean, I think like just to go through the weekend, which I think might be kind of a cleaner. We really want to talk. You know what? Do we just really want to talk about Sunday, and should we just keep it? You want to work backwards here, Brandon? Because we just saw these matches, so maybe working back. Maybe we scrapped the running order already. This lovely running order that we put together this morning.
Yeah.
What are your FPL takeaways from Liverpool Chelsea?
Yeah, I think my takeaways are that Chelsea are not a defensive team. There was that moment where I think that Sanchez's value was very much inflated by the pen save, the 15-pointer that he got.
Yep.
And then they ran into some yellow card suspensions, and there was a lot of like in-game rotation with the back line from Maresca against Chelsea.
Yeah,
so
you were saying you feel like Maresca rotates too much.
like what that I feel like Maresca's hit upon something with Chelsea that is certainly working in the attack aspect, but now he just needs to find some cohesion and some continuity, and he's not doing that at all. And I guess he's just kind of working with the situation that he got, where he had too big a squad, and he's really just trying to challenge these players to show him where that continuity would be. But I still think it's Palmer or nobody from the attack. Nicholas Jackson did have a pretty good goal, though. So I guess if you have ridden out a small drought with Nico Jackson, suddenly you should be buoyed by what happened.
He is one of those players that can be hard to evaluate in fantasy, because he has like truly terrible body language. Like when you watch him play, he looks like he's absolutely miserable out there. I mean, he's sort of in that like who we put in there? It's like Mesut Ozil, sort of famously, was a bad body language player, but who else was like? I feel like we're missing some other
Richarlison,
Richarlison, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, Brandon, always with the Richarlison.
Too many to count.
Yeah. But what do you think, Dave? Am I forgetting a bad body language player here?
How do you rate your body language, Dave?
Right. I mean, the great thing about New York is there's so much to see and do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about that they might be Giants song, but my body language right now, it's hurting. But it was good early in the week, and then just as the games have gone on, like you said, these Sunday games, it's really just dragging us down.
It has nothing to do with you going to raves at 4.
Exactly. Yeah, rolling in. Yeah, exactly.
but I guess like to finish that point on Chelsea, the wingers as good as they are individually, they're still trying to find like. It does feel like Maresca wants Neto to work, and Sancho did not have a great game. Madueke is really just feast or famine with him fantasy wise. So kind of like as much potential as there is with Chelsea.
Yeah.
Then you get to Liverpool. Your feelings on Liverpool. So you only have Trent. How are you feeling about Trent? Is that a good use of money for you at the moment?
He's honestly been fine. I mean, when I think about how my season's gone so far, Trent's performance is not at the top of the list by any means. I mean, getting 3 consecutive blanks from Haaland has honestly been a bigger problem for me, considering. I mean, this week was a little bit different. This week he was heavily captain. The last 2 weeks, though, he was a little bit of a differential captain, and it didn't come through at all. And so, I have like just sort of larger problems with Man City that I'm trying to sort of figure out. I suppose I've dodged a bullet by not having Rico Lewis. Like that's one of the that's one of the few. I guess that's worked out reasonably well. But I mean, I thought Salah had a real like a modern Salah performance, right? Where he's sort of like he struggles to take people on still.
But now he's heads up looking for the pass, which has really unlocked another aspect of his game. And you saw him trying a lot from wide to find his teammates in this match, as you have through a lot of this season.
Yeah.
So as I've been like over the last few weeks looking for the jumping off point to move Salah to either Saka or Palmer. And after this weekend, I think I'm got to keep going with Salah. Though
I mean, they play Arsenal away in game week 9. So, but I mean, what would I guess? I mean, Palmer. Let's see.
Palmer plays Newcastle next week, and Newcastle are a total mess right now. And Anthony Gordon has just been kind of. He's turned from a cheeky differential into just kind of like weirdly killing my game weeks, from his missed pens to the blank at home against Brighton. So obviously that is a huge opportunity, I think, for Palmer against Newcastle in game week 9.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, is that worth a transfer? I guess that would be the question. Like, is it worth? So you have 2 transfers, right, going into game week 9. As do I. Dave, did you make a transfer this week?
No, I have 5. I think.
Do you really?
I think I did.
Wow, that's amazing. So you actually got to 5. I've been waiting for someone to get to 5 transfers.
I think. Hold on. Let me live check here.
All right.
No, I got 4. I guess. Sorry.
Okay.
Is that right?
One more week to go, Dave.
Yeah. I think I could roll.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're like what, like a 3K right now in the world, something like that.
Yeah, I was counting,
No, I think I saw that you and Dave are roughly exactly in the same position.
Oh, good. So he's doing equally terrible. That's great.
I'm in the 7 figures.
Yeah, me too. Sadly.
So I'm on 30 points right now. Thank you, Mo. I did terribly on Saturday. The only thing I got was a goal from Morgan Rogers. It was blanks from Havertz, the -3 from Saliba, and just bad news all around. Fulham didn't coalesce. Even though, I'm already moving to Saturday, but just for my team.
Yeah, you are. You got like a. You're all over the place right now.
You're ready to talk about Fulham.
I think it's because the camera's on you and you're feeling like a lot of pressure.
Feeling the pressure.
It's like Albert Brooks in broadcast news.
Oh,
But
30 points with just Dean Henderson to go. I'm like 6.5 million game week rank, moving me to around 1.6 million overall. So I'll certainly be finishing on a red arrow for the week, and I'm just waiting for the moment to kick on, man.
I think a lot of people are feeling that way. I mean, I'm on 26. I have Eze and Henderson to go, and so I'm kind of feeling the same. I was actually feeling okay going into this match, and if I gotten anything from Palmer or Trent, I would feel okay about this week. But I mean, I'm already looking at I think the average score is 31, so I mean, I'm already 5 under average, and so it's kind of it's and Eze hasn't done anything really the entire season, right? One attack in return in 8 weeks, so or I guess 7 weeks. We'll see what he does tomorrow. So but I think it's one of those weeks where it's like a good week to have a bad week, as they say. There's it's not like there's a massive swing or anything like that. So Dave, what about you? Like, how are you looking on your points so far this weekend?
20 something like everyone else, 24, 25. Watkins and Rogers. We'll talk about Fulham, I guess.
Yep.
But like we said, tomorrow's game is gonna be the FPL hammer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
I know.
Chris Wood, I got going on Eze. It's gonna be an interesting. It's gonna be a move week.
Yeah, that's true. And I have Henderson, so maybe Henderson will have a fantastic match. Oh, I guess I am actually on 27 because I get 1 point off the bench. I get Robinson in for Greaves. I thought Robinson had a yellow, but apparently he didn't.
They put a yellow up on the screen, at least on the U.S. version of the broadcast, and it was an errant graphic. Apparently. So he comes through with a clean one. Shall we take a quick moment? Because we're recording early on Saturday, we've got some more UK listeners in the YouTube chat. Our friend FPL Yellow Army, also Sebastian Front also has 5 free transfers. So we're on the lookout for these rare people, these unicorns. On the
FPL are there
space.
Any questions in the chat, Dave, that you want to throw out?
We had an addition to the bad body language of Bruno.
Oh, Bruno. Yeah, he's a great bad body language player.
That was an interesting moment in that Manchester United match where there was a camera angle on Bruno where I thought he had joined the Turkish hair transplant brigade. His hair just looked really full this weekend for some reason. So, but I kind of backed away from that theory, and I just feel like I need to say, Bruno, your hair looked you had a great hair day on Saturday.
Remember when Salah used to have the really long hair, and it was just like not a great. I bet it looked cool off the pitch, but it was like it really did not work on.
If it rained, it was not a great look.
That hair had goals in it, though.
That's true. That hair did have goals in it. That's a fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point. All right. Well, let's return back to Saturday, as you were saying. It's I think. The Fulham Villa match, I think my takeaway, I mean, Morgan Rogers scored a goal, Watkins scored a goal. I mean, I don't think there's anything super dramatic in that. I guess my big fantasy takeaway from that match would have been that Raul Jimenez got the full 90 minutes, scored a goal early, nice goal as well, and played I thought pretty well throughout. I mean, he really only had the one big chance, but I think if there's been a little bit of hesitation around him just because of his injury history and stuff like that, this really feels like the season where we're all kind of struggling to find that cheap third forward, and maybe that doesn't really exist. Maybe it's Chris Wood, honestly. I mean, he's the only consistent one.
I want to ask Brendan about what he feels about Jimenez, because I saw after the match he's the top value forward on Mikel Takvim's table.
Is that right?
Haaland. So
yeah,
is Jimenez a buy, Brandon?
Why not? I mean, Fulham are an attacking team, if nothing else, right now. And Muni's just he's lost his spot to Raul. Raul had a fantastic international break with Mexico, scoring a screamer. And Fulham do have good fixtures, right?
Terrific run. Yeah, Everton, Brentford, Palace, Wolves in the next 4. I mean, that's a really strong run. Although one other takeaway from Saturday is 2 clean sheets in a row for Everton. They have righted the ship, and we kind of. I don't know about you guys. I just assumed this would happen eventually. It was. I mean, like they had
happened last season.
They had a ton, right? And they had a ton of injuries to start the season, right? And so we kind of, and even now Branthwaite is still not back, although he should be soon. That's actually one of the unfortunate things is that probably Michael Keane, who had a great match today, or at least from an FPL perspective, he's at 4.1 million, but I think you have to avoid Keane, unfortunately, because I do think that he had been basically dropped for Branthwaite last year, and so I think he's a doubt. But you did have
Michael Caine, though, remains a great actor.
Yeah, Michael Caine, fantastic.
And so when he scores points, his voice.
The trip.
That was good. We needed that, Dave.
But I mean, speaking of Everton, I think that for anyone who's looking like you and I, like one of the things that really screwed us is one of the reasons that you and I and many others are on less than 30 is because of Saliba, right?
Yeah.
And not just getting -3 from him, but the fact that anyone who had Raya got hurt by that, sort of eliminated all of Arsenal's attacking, sort of potential in that match.
Sure, yeah, it hurt me having Havertz, and the damage was already done to Saka owners. So Saka being a miss, it was an interesting sort of waveform of content leading up to the game week, talking about Saka. I mean, Andy Martin, I think, probably had the cleverest thing where he actually drove down to Arsenal's hotel in Bournemouth and took a photo of himself and where they had saw the team getting off the bus to do a height comparison.
And he's based in South Africa too, so that's incredible commitment.
Yeah. So I hope you have diamond status, Andy, to afford that flight, because to do that last minute is crazy. There was a lot of sort of Sturm and Drang about who knew what. Do we know anything, Josh, about team sheets?
What do you mean?
You getting inside leaks?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. So, okay, yeah, okay.
I wouldn't know the first thing of how to get them.
So you and I thought about this, and so just for anyone who isn't on Twitter, and congratulations if you aren't. I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah, good on you.
Yeah, exactly. And Twitter is a dying social media network that has now been. Like, it's primarily FPL as far as I can tell. It's like those are the people who are like hanging on, and everyone is absolutely furious with each other. And this is like this has been going on for like a year and a half. I actually basically bowed out. Like, unfortunately, I've now turned Twitter into like a place where I just like share like podcast information. And
FPL Twitter is like going to a Sunday family dinner with your like extended relatives.
Right.
Often it is cordial, but you all know that you all secretly hate each other.
Or it's like a family trip that's one day too long,
Right.
And and I just think okay, I have a couple of thoughts about this. And so basically the issue was that there was a lot of information about Saka, or lack of information about Saka, really. And most of the people who are making FPL, I don't actually like the phrase content creators. I don't know why, but like a lot of people who make FPL YouTube videos and podcasts, wherever, we're advocating to keep Saka, and that's where I mean, and I just my rationale was basically that
he always starts.
Arteta is not one of these managers. Like, if Arteta says that he's close to starting, my expectation is that he probably will start. It's not like I don't think it's like, whereas other managers like Eddie Howe, for example, right? You genuinely have no idea. Like, if Howe says that Isak we plan to have him start tomorrow, that means it's like 50-50, right? Like you genuinely can't believe what he says. But I think, and so there was a lot of debate about this, and then it turned out like basically all of these people dropped Saka. And you and I, cool guys that we are, didn't even have Saka, so we were able to avoid.
We had no one to drop.
Yeah, we had no one to drop. So, and Dave, you had Saka yourself, right? And so you kept him.
Yeah, I mean,
you're also in the club.
I was in the
club.
I was in the we're all family in the club.
Yeah.
No, that was my thought too. It's like, worst case scenario, he's not in the squad. You'll get something off the bench at Semenyo for a sub.
Yeah,
so it's actually that was a pretty easy solution. But like we were talking about before, I think it was a sound theory because the fixtures coming up are turning for Saka. They, with no Odegaard, he's looking all off. So, but the alternatives weren't super clean. Like, it's a double transfer to Palmer, or it's Foden, who we already talked about is a risk. And I love Foden, but or Son was a risk too.
Yeah, and
a little bit,
and inconsistent as well. I mean, he's had Son has not been a super reliable fantasy asset this season.
Son was clearly past fit for the weekend, but I agree with you both. Like, Spurs were in at least some goal scoring form without him. You never know how slowly Ange is going to want to bring him back there.
Yeah.
So there was some risk there too, but that turned out to be the best move.
And I think in some ways that we're sort of a little bit on the outside of this world, because a lot of the content that we do, we're not doing a lot of deadline streams, right? We're not like talking to people 10 minutes before, partially because we don't we're still asleep when the deadline hits, right? It's like, the deadline is 6 a.m. East Coast time. It is not, I am not up in most cases. Every now and then, if it's crucial, I'll do it. But in general, I'm not waking up at 5:15 to check things. No. I'm kind of going with it. And so I think, so we don't necessarily get like hit by this stuff as much, but I think there's an idea out there that, and I guess like this just kind of speaks, I think, a little bit, and I like forgive me if I'm going
Speak
off
your mind, Josh.
FPL here a little bit, but like just the relationship that people have with people who create content a little bit, and this idea that like, you were saying to me yesterday, like, no one's making like a ton of money on this.
There's this belief that there's this ivory tower in which somebody who makes just go to. I implore you to go to our YouTube channel and look at the quality of this. What
are you
I
doing?
keep hitting the desk and shaking the camera.
Hey,
we
actually, yeah.
Well, okay, yeah, back up.
I don't know what you're talking about us here. Yeah.
By the way, I'm in Josh's house right now, and I don't know. The money seems to be rolling in here.
Yeah,
so
that's true. You are in a parlor, so yeah.
But nonetheless, the point is that there is this sort of like class structure, and content creators are reaping this incredible revenue from it while not doing any work. Like the people who do make money from it, like work their tails off. And so whatever that would be the point.
Can I ask you a question though about that? So even putting the money aside, or including the money, even what's the incentive to lie?
Right. Yeah.
Does that mean you're going to watch more, contribute to someone who lies to you? What's the game theory of
that
this?
I'm
not understanding.
There's some edge in diluting 300 or 400 people or whatever, right?
Yeah.
About what you're doing. It's like there's 12 million people or whatever, there's 11 million people playing fantasy. Like the amount of people that you would gain an edge on is so small, right? And
well, you're not making money by playing FPL because that would be against the rules,
right? Yeah, well, there's that too. Yeah.
So I don't understand like what even is the argument of why.
But I think that's the subtext. The subtext of people getting mad about this stuff is that that they are doing it to get an edge over the opposition, right? I think that to me is what people are mad about. This idea that there's like that they have secret knowledge that they're not sharing in order to like, I suppose, get more rank. And I think you're rightly making the case. And again, we don't need to like belabor this because
I know, but like even so, like Andy said, you might change it 2 days before I watched a video. So I don't understand. I don't see where people get this from.
And just this idea that like that people have, I actually don't think there's that much. I mean, I'm in plenty of like DM threads with like these exact people, and a lot of them, like, believe me, like a lot of them are talking minutes before the deadline, trying to like casting about, asking everybody else if they know anything, right? It's not like there's like this secret feed.
And we know the cheaters are pro leaks. You guys will share any leaks.
No one's ever done it though. You know, it's the problem is our listener base
right there.
They don't exist.
We're breaking conspiracies here live.
I think it's ultimately to our benefit that our listener base is not really a Twitter base. And so it's so funny. Like I think of my friends Noah and Louise, who are producers of the pod, and every now and then I'll talk to them, and they're just, they do not pay attention to any of this kind of stuff, and they think like it's insane that anybody does, you know. Right. And I'm like, that's probably like the approach. That
even though they manage a fantasy team,
right? Exactly.
The joy they derive is watching the matches on the weekend, and
exactly. And they have a mini league of their own. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and that a lot of the anger that people have about fantasy stems from really caring about overall rank, right? And I think that this is just something I think like maybe this has to be like a theme for us this year, which is like invest in your mini leagues, invest in head-to-head leagues, invest in stuff that you can do with smaller groups of people where you have a better chance of winning. Because if your goal is to finish in the top 1,000 out of 11 million people, your odds are about as good as like, it's not like winning the lottery, but it's about like,
not as good as Arsenal winning the league. You could say.
Yeah, exactly.
You're talking about investing time.
I'd say they're lower than that, You're
talking about time investment, right?
Yeah, time investment. Yeah, all of it, yeah. So it's just like, it's just not really, I just think like I think our goals should be focused on, and like find again, like, yes, watch the matches, enjoy them, find moments of joy in that, of course. But I think just like looking purely from a fantasy point of view, if you're only thinking about overall rank, it's probably a quick way to just spend a lot of week, and I feel guilty of this too. Spend a lot of time getting really frustrated, right? Like if I asked you, like right now, I am feeling frustrated with my season, right? I'm like in the millions, like Dave is, and I mean you're not that far into the hundreds, thousands.
I'm at 1.6 million.
Are you? Yeah, exactly. So like we're all having like a rough season, but if I look at I actually have to force myself to do this, right? But if I looked at our mini leagues, even like the ones that are like more competitive, where I really would like to win, I'm maybe 30 points back, 35. Like it's nothing, right? There's 30 weeks to go in the season. Like it's so long. Plus the mystery chip. That's going to change everything. Exactly. Maybe the mystery chip will just be like you click the button and
you get the leaks.
Yeah, you get the leaks. or it's like a lottery, and it's like you just hit a button, you get like someone gets an extra 100 points, someone gets an extra 200. Like who knows what's gonna happen with the mystery chip.
Yes. Well, so that's really what's going on. That's an update on what's going on in the FPL Twitter space. Speaking of conspiracies, though, do we need to go back to Arsenal and talk about further red card drama for them? I mean, what did you make of the Saliba red card and like Declan Rice saying to the officials after the match, "It happens to us every week"?
Well, I mean, that's just like every manager is full of self-pity and has a lot of listen, like to me it's actually, and everyone who is like pro VAR is going to hate this, but to me it's like it's another VAR problem, which is basically that it force, like there's no, once you look at VAR, there's no way not to call that a red card, right? Because it is by every technical rule, like an off, like it's he's the last man
defender.
He's the last defender, and so you have to do it. But the referee on the pitch called it a yellow, and that from like an enjoyment standpoint, and ultimately kind of from a fantasy standpoint too, depending on how many Arsenal assets you had, I guess it's like it made for a worse match, right? And so it's like that is what's frustrating to me, and I just think that VAR, I mean, I don't know, I guess,
and the exact same play happened today with Liverpool Chelsea, where Tosin took Jota down within the first 10 minutes of the match.
Thankfully, they didn't
carbon copy, and Michael Oliver in the VAR booth decided to stick with the yellow card
instantly too, which I think was smart. It was like I don't think you'd arrive yet, Dave. It was like 4 seconds in, he was like, "Nope, we're just not going to call this."
Right. So, you do feel for Arsenal getting hit with all of these sort of like minor infractions that lead to red cards, but
it's just fluky.
It is fluky. And I have this theory that I think Arteta, and anyone who's watched the All or Nothing Amazon documentary about Arteta's season with Arsenal, where Arteta's just kind of a guy who really enjoys putting out these like big brain, MBA theories about how to play football and how to be tactical. And I think his weirdness is now in the heads of all of these Arsenal players. So they're like overthinking all of these instances on the pitch and trying to gain an edge. Like Arteta tries to gain an edge in the press conference room of like lying about players' injury status. And then he's got his players on the pitch kind of doing weird, similar types of things, but with trying to like walk that red card line or delaying the game and all that.
I just think it's really fluky, honestly. And I think, I mean, if you look at all the situations, you had a time wasting, right? Isn't that basically what got Trossard knocked out of the match in the Man City, right? It's like time wasting.
Yep.
And you had the Declan Rice, which I actually don't think should have been a red card. I mean, it was obviously a second yellow and a red, but like I thought that one was like another. Was that time wasting too?
Yeah, so same thing that Trossard did.
Yeah. So so 2 time wastings and then a kind of technically accurate red card. So I think that is all just like fluky stuff that will get kind of wiped away. But I am sort of curious about the clean sheet part of it, and I think there is like an actual FPL angle to this, and whether we think, I mean, my feeling is basically this, and you guys tell me if you disagree. You had a lot of international tournaments this summer, right? And so a lot of players came back late. A lot of top players, especially defenders, center, like a bunch of center backs, top clubs were playing. Not Ben White, as we all know, but many others. No. Of course, now he's a right back mostly. But I think that so they didn't necessarily have enough time to practice together. And I think that I think there's a little bit of that, a little bit of there's so much money in the Premier League now that even Bournemouth level clubs can get like a Vanelson type players, right? Like you can like basically bring in like really talented Brazilians to be your forward, even if you're like the 15th best team in the Premier League. And
imagine Shaqiri at Stoke City. It's that
sort of thing. And so I think that's part of it too. It's just like I don't think you get like in La Liga, or the Bundesliga, like this level of talent, like in the bottom, third of the league. And so I think that affects clean sheets maybe like more increasingly. But I do think ultimately long term that we will get there again. And maybe this is just something that we just really need to like think about going forward, which is just don't invest too much money in your defense the first half of the season. And the second half of the season is when you can start to kind of turn the dial a little bit, because I feel like we see this every single year with Man City, which is that they have these kind of run where they concede a bunch of goals, and then the final 10 weeks of the season, no one can score on them. Right? It is like they 1-0 their way to a title, and I just think we're going to see that again this year. Yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, Dave, Man City. I mean, that they're a punchline defensively, at least in fantasy terms. How close are you as of today in considering a City defender for the run?
You brought this up, and I just immediately said like I've gone through the Ederson ringer. We've all had like Josh. You said Rico Lewis. I mean, he's probably a buy still because he's starting every match, right?
I guess so. I mean, he does get forward a little bit too.
Well, Guardiola obviously scored.
Guardiola will be the bandwagon during this transfer window because the run continues for City.
Yeah,
he scored his second goal of the season, and he finished last season so strong that people will remember that.
Yeah.
So I think Saliba to Guardiola is probably the algorithmic preference for going into game week 9.
That's interesting. That actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I'm surprised I haven't really thought about that more seriously. That's a pretty logical move.
I don't know, but like you just said, that long point you made, what I think was good though. It's like, why would we have
to get a dig in there?
Yeah, that has undermined the point I just made. Yeah, it actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, can I spend more money on my defense? Like, ignore everything I just said.
Yeah, and plus Trent, like if we have him and Gabriel, or I don't know.
Sure, yeah.
That's why Rico Lewis might be a little more tempting because you can use that money.
So what is how do you measure the upside of Guardiola? It really is. It's the same with Trent, where you're just kind of talking about the high ceilings, but it has been so variable, the returns on defenders, that I'm sure an equally compelling case could be made to just getting all 4.5s.
All right, well, there's
not that many good
ones.
Well, can you bring up the FPL Hub heat map for Guardiola?
Yeah, exactly. Let me see if I can pull that up in real time.
Splits,
yeah, without things getting too chaotic here. But I am okay. So let's say that we actually believe what I've just said, which is that you want to maybe scale back a little bit on your defense. And I feel this way a little bit about Trent, where I do wonder if that money could be spent, invested in a like a better third forward, perhaps. I have Jamie Vardy at the moment. Like, that can't last. I'm gonna keep him for
Jamie
game.
Vardy Ponzi scheme is not.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. I did finally get a goal this week, thankfully.
It's a Vardy pump and dump over here.
Yeah, exactly. That goal. Yeah, exactly.
If we all get Vardy, it's better for Josh.
Yeah, if this were draft league, then it'd be even better. I'd be trying to switch him off, but yeah, so he's got to go eventually, and maybe there's like I don't know, like maybe I can find someone else. It could just be I go back to Chris Wood. But let's say that I want to start taking some money out of my defense and put it in my midfield and forward lines. And I think, and maybe the other way would be that we've talked before about how you just want to try to have 3 out of 4 of these like expensive premium assets. And that just may be the thing that you need to do, and that you're going to kind of always get something. And I think we saw that this week, right? Like, obviously Saka didn't play, but, and I guess when I say 4, I'm thinking Saka, Haaland, Palmer, and Salah, right? Those are like the big kind of 4 fantasy assets this season, I think. And it seems like every single week, you're going to get like one of those will carry you if you have them. Now, obviously, you could have had Haaland, Saka, and
Palmer
and Palmer this week, and that would have been 3 blanks. But I think without Saka playing, I think if Saka had played, that's a totally different story.
I'm going to ask you a hypothetical here, Josh.
Yeah,
and Dave, I want to hear your opinion too. Imagine Haaland blanks against Southampton at home at the Etihad. You laugh and you think like how improbable it is, right?
Yeah.
But it'll be 4 blanks in a row. And in those blanks, you have some weak opposition. You look at the injuries surrounding the club. How close would you be to dropping Haaland if he were to blank against Southampton?
I mean,
is that a conversation to even entertain?
It wouldn't be at the top of my priority list still.
I wouldn't make a decision off 1 week, but also we had a question on the YouTube of, is this hurting the Haaland triple captain shout against Southampton?
Yeah, I think it is.
Talking about dumping him. People are talking about triple captaining him. Like,
very much hurts it.
I don't know how you can triple captain him at the moment. I mean, yeah, I think he'll score this next weekend. But
if there was a say like Foden, and I'm sorry, say Foden and De Bruyne returns from his injury midweek in the Champions League, and there was that dramatic a shift in how you expected Man City to line up against Southampton, then potentially. But yes, as it is, given the state of play, I just cannot fathom triple captaining Haaland right now.
What do you think, Dave?
I don't know, maybe Dibbling in, if they
yeah.
Give it to Dibbling for the end of the season. Yeah.
I'm thinking the other side, the Galaxy brain. They keep thinking goals,
Yeah,
Archer,
that's
Dibbling,
true.
value plays.
Yeah, that's true. Dibbling, it's 4.5, right? Oh, yeah.
I'm a, like you, Josh. I enjoy, by the way, on the Patreon pods, you go through some of the odds of the anytime goal scorers. I think I'll be honest, I'm a slave to those odds because those are efficient markets usually, and just Haaland's just always very good odds to do something. So I don't see myself dropping him.
It's just, it is like they have to. It feels like Pep will figure this out. It's a little bit like we were talking about Deitch and Everton earlier. It's like this idea that things aren't working, that they're not feeding the ball to Haaland is like a problem that can't be fixed. Is I think wrong, right? Like in Gundogan and Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden, whenever he gets over his long COVID, in the years to come, I don't know. Who knows? I'm not actually planting that in the world. That was just what somebody said in one of our ad replies. But I think that you have like eventually they're going to figure. Maybe Jack Grealish needs to get back in there. Like they need like somebody who's like a better creator, right? I'm not sure Doku is as good of a creator as Grealish on the left, and so I think that they're obviously they're missing Rodri, but I do think that Pep is the Premier League's best manager, and I think that he'll eventually, and I don't mean eventually like as in like 20 weeks. I think like by this weekend possibly he's going to figure it out. But to go back to my question about defense, let's say we wanted to take the money out. Looking at these fixtures, like the next 7. This actually, I almost never look 7 fixtures ahead. By the way, I think 5 or 6 is as far as I ever want to look. Just because too many things change, too many people get injured. But are there a couple of teams that you would recommend somebody target if they were looking to drop Saliba, or if they were looking to clear out money to bring in, let's say Saka gets a clean bill of health, and this is actually a terrible week to bring in Saka, but let's say you want to bring in Palmer, and you want to keep Saka while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Who would be some cheap defenders that you might look at?
I still like Nottingham Forest. Great stats. I am haunted by that assist that Aina had against Liverpool to Hudson-Odoi earlier this season, I think. And they have at least 2 good fixtures coming up.
You're haunted like because you wanted to.
I'm haunted just in like I think about it all the time. I'm not haunted like it really affected my life.
So
it's
it's like a 19th century like English novel.
It's
spooky season.
I am doing a lot of opium though to go with the Victorian theme, so maybe that has something to do with how I see Aina everywhere. I do. But they have Leicester away and then West Ham at home, and West Ham, just the implosion continues. And even Newcastle at home, you have to like for Forest. So I think you mentioned Everton before, and Everton have this sort of newfound defensive form. I'm curious about these fixtures, though, for Everton. Fulham, even though they're hosting Fulham, are an attacking team, very capable of scoring. We talked about the run that Raul is on. And then probably the 2 best defensive fixtures for Everton are away from home with Southampton and West Ham. And then they finish off this mini run of theirs with Brentford at hosting at Goodison Park, who is also a pretty adept at scoring.
Park. I wonder if that's a little stand that they have outside the stadium.
How could it not be? How could it the best sausages this side of the Thames or something like this, which I know it does not run as far north as that. But so if I'm comparing Everton and Forest, that's my little like tete there.
Yeah,
I'm going Forest.
Yeah, I was making a tiny shout for Udogie as a kind of cheaper route into the Spurs defense. But the problem right now is you're not getting clean sheets anywhere, right? And so you ideally, this is one of the reasons I'm not like dying to get rid of Trent, because I'm like, well, at least he has different like multiple routes to points, right? Like sometimes I'll fluke into a clean sheet, and sometimes I'll get an attack in return. But Udogie has actually been like a reasonably attacking asset for Spurs, and so he might be somebody. I mean, obviously Porro is still the kind of top.
Porro has set pieces over Udogie. He's more consistent defensively. He does shoot more. He had a really great opportunity off of a corner kick this on Saturday. And some would argue that Van de Ven is roughly the same price as Udogie, and maybe he's a little bit more consistent. I don't know. Udogie's had a very strange season. He's had moments where he's been very defensively inept, but that's just like a read outside of the fantasy game. It's just all about returns. And I do see what you're seeing, Josh, where he is actually getting into the box a bit more when they're pushing down that left-hand side of the pitch.
I guess it's just that he's 4.9 million, right? So he's pretty cheap. Like you could move, and they've had like a pretty decent run of fixtures. Palace, Villa. I mean, Villa's a tough fixture, obviously, but then Ipswich and Fulham at home, 2 of the 3 after that. So, I don't. What do you think, Dave, about the Spurs defense in general? I mean, obviously, it's been a source of some frustration in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think Porro's the obvious move if you're going to do a Saliba replacement.
Yeah.
So, but it's not. I'm not, super excited. And I have to consult the heat maps on Udagi.
Yeah, I don't have a heat map here, but I mean, Porro. But so Porro
heat map over here.
I mean,
Come
Porro's,
on.
5.5 million is Porro, so he's 0.6 more than Udagi, but he does have, he has 5 blanks and 6 for Porro as well, which is kind of a lot for to me. It's like if I'm going to get a defender that costs more than 5 million, I really want. So I want to be averaging some kind of return, whether it's a clean sheet or attack return, like basically every other match, right? Because it's quite a lot of money when you can sort of fluke your way into clean sheets with any old 4.5 million.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is it even worth it at that point? Because then just go for the clean sheets with Forest or Brighton or anyone.
It's
just
true.
Roll the dice.
Yeah, and Udogi's just got the 1 assist so far in the season too.
You're not going to get a return from a defender every other game. It seems like at the moment. So
yeah, exactly. Maybe Trent he gets you the closest.
Yellow Army makes a good point on the chat. It was Anthony Alenga who actually got that assist,
not the one that haunts you. Yeah.
Well, so I'm still haunted by Aina, and I'm trying to figure out why.
It's a specter. You can't make out the shapes. It's like a smoke, smoky. Vision.
It could be Grandma. Yeah. It could be Grandma. I'm not sure.
Grandma. I think that's the title for today's podcast. Actually, it could be Grandma. And other thoughts on Game Week 9. All right. Well, let's. Anything else that you want to discuss? We can move on actually and talk about Game Week 9 in a second here. But any other kind of final thoughts on the matches that we saw over the weekend? I think we've probably covered everything. I guess the one, Newcastle. That is the one where it's surprising to me. They've had a number of good fixtures, and it just feels like the vibes are off.
The magic is
left. Yeah, we need a vibe shift with Newcastle sometime soon.
It all stems. We thought that all of Newcastle's good fortune and good form stemmed from Joe Linton. It turned out it was Kieran Trippier the whole time.
Yeah,
and as he has faded from the team, so has the form. So
all right, well,
I think it's over for Newcastle. All right, well
then let's move on. Let's talk about Game Week 9. Just quickly before we do, I want to give a quick shout out to everyone who supports the podcast on Patreon. You can go to Patreon, including our friend over here. He's not just our friend; he's our Patreon supporter. Maybe one day you can become a Patreon supporter and be right in this room.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Dave is in the friend tier. It's $1,000 a month. Well worth it though.
Yeah, it's like a frat.
Yeah, it's like a frat. Yeah, it's like initiation and everything. No, but you can go to patreon.com.
Your spanking will occur after this recording.
Again?
Hey, I don't make the rules.
You can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating to support the podcast. You get an extra podcast each week. We also do. We're on the Discord. The Discord is I'm honestly, I know I always say this, and but like the way it kind of continues to evolve and expand. It's really, there are people on there who it feels like it's genuinely replaced social media for a lot of people. And I think in a way that's really positive. And there's lots of little subgroup. I think because you and I are mods on there, we see every little subgroup, right? And there's we see everything, you know, but there's these little, South American.
I see what you and the Norwegian channel are up to. Okay. Don't think that we're not watching and reading
Norwegian
every one of your
meetups
posts.
And there's a betting channel, and there's fashion and like music and NFL.
I'm the mod of NFL, so
you're the mod of NFL, exactly. There's NFL fantasy leagues. There's all kinds of stuff on there, and so it's a fun community. So if you're feeling like if this Saka situation, and you're just like, oh my god, I'm just so sick of this stuff, and you want to be somewhere where like things are just a little calmer and people aren't screaming at each other all the time, you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating, support the podcast, and even at the lowest pledge level, you get access to the Discord, and so that's just a nice way to maybe get some access to some new fantasy content. And then we're going to start a contest sometime soon. I think we're talking about maybe doing it before the second half this time around, just because I know some people are getting a little frustrated with their overall ranks, and there might be a chance to get to juice things up. Maybe we'll do it like after the next
juice.
Yeah. We have, thankfully, I know you guys are sick of the Premier League already. We got another national break coming up in a couple of weeks, and so it might be a time to kick off
one weekend of Premier League was plenty.
Exactly.
Get me out of here.
I know, exactly. We're already gearing up for the next IB. So
maybe we should do like an off the side FPL Challenge League or something. It's like you guys like I don't even know what FPL Challenge is.
I know.
And you were explaining to me, I was like, actually sounds kind of fun.
It is.
And if it's a daily fantasy, there's always
Totally.
you don't have to worry about your current team. So maybe we can do like a second half.
It's
like Discord League or something with that.
It's a little bit like D&D, where it's like you need someone to be like I just mean like you need someone to like actually be the kind of like what are they?
A dungeon master.
The dungeon master. Yeah, you just need someone to be. That was the word I thought it was, and then I was like I doubted myself at the last second. But you basically need somebody to.
It's safe politically to say dungeon master.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not gonna get canceled for saying dungeon master. No, but it's it's like you need someone who's like enthusiastic, who kind of leads the charge, right? And actually, this goes back to the mini league thing we were talking about before too. Yeah. This is kind of like Patreon stuff aside, but if the person who leads your mini league isn't like actively managing it or like be engaged in it, maybe you need to be that person. It's like be the change. Exactly. Thank you, Obama. Thanks, Obama. All right. Well, let's move on then. I want to look ahead to game week 9. I think the captaincy, we have a couple of questions too, but just to kind of kick things off, captaincy I think is relatively straightforward this week, right? I think it's gonna be very hard for me to envision not going with Erling Haaland, even with those blanks. But if Haaland were to get injured, or if there was some risk of him starting, right, there's some leak that comes out that he's not expected to start this match or something like that, then I think you could consider Mbomo, right? I think
100%.
Brentford hosting Ipswich could be one.
Yeah, Mbomo blanked this week for the first time in quite a while, and just imagine having an asset where it's surprising when they blank, and his name is not Erling Haaland.
Right.
It was surprising kind of to see Mbomo blank this week, and he has a plum home fixture. Apologies to our buddy James Holland, but Ipswich just have not got going this season at all, and for all the talk about how well managed they are and how they're sort of like canny enough to play in the Premier League, they are a team to target at this point.
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned.
As far as everyone's concerned.
I'm going out on a limb here. I understand.
But okay, so like so captaincy fairly simple. Vice captain, I think I actually probably will end up putting it on Mbomo. Maybe I'll put it on Cole Palmer. I mean, that would be the other kind of logical VC pick.
Or Jimenez against Everton.
Well, that's an interesting question, actually, because I do think that Everton is a team where you could target their defensive assets too. And I wonder if that could be, I mean, to me, I guess like maybe the most likely scenario was like 1-1 for that match. But I 1-0 Everton win wouldn't be like a shocking result there. So what about in terms of you guys, your teams this week? Maybe we'll start with Dave. What are you? You have 4 transfers.
Yeah, I'm rolling no matter what to get the 5, just for the bit.
Just for the banter.
Just for the bit. Yeah. Just to see that number in the bus team next week.
Are you being serious? Like, is that you think that's what
I mean, I have the Saliba problem. I guess I have a Saka half problem.
Yeah.
So those are certainly...
We'd share your team, but just because we've got this kind of like hacked setup for today's stream, I'm not going to do it. But
I wild card a few weeks ago, so I had a fairly template wild card team, but no Diaz, which has been a good move. But then the Semenyo, Smith Rowe, 8th attacker kind of like
tricky
rotation thing. I don't know. So there's might be some opportunities to fiddle around with stuff. But again, I don't know who is a screaming buy this week, as we've talked about. So
I think let's say like you had the luxury of not really needing to make any big changes this week. I think Watkins would be someone you could target. Yeah, you already have him, but I just in general. Yeah.
We're switching to just general. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, actually speaking of a good question in the chat around Spurs of, they're scoring goals, and Brendan, this is your pet topic of, do you want a team to target that's scoring a lot of goals, but it's spread out, or the concentrated tip of the spear of a low-scoring talisman. I know you feel strongly about this, but it is frustrating to have Solanke and then 4-goal game and nothing. So that's super frustrating, but it seems
kind of fluky though, too, right?
Exactly. So
yeah,
is it
I don't know if
can we
it's
see it,
fluky.
Josh? Can we see it first?
Well, he's done it too. Yeah, exactly. I know you're trying to rope me into Simmons talk here, but it's I mean, he's had returns in the 2 previous weeks, right, Solanke? So we have been seeing him kind of round into fantasy shape. He hasn't. I don't think he's had a big match, right? I don't think we've seen him like even necessarily get like multiple attacking returns in a match so far.
I just think to watch him play, it's so much hold up play from him. And I think like some Spurs fans would suggest that Ange will change those tactics depending on the opponent. And I think West Ham would be, given their vulnerability on crosses and set pieces, still it didn't feel like Solanke was a huge part of that plan for him to be getting the final ball. Still, he was playing very well as a hold-up player, but it's just I'm not seeing the huge fantasy ceiling for him.
I think, and I just pulled up his stats. He actually had attacking returns in 3 matches in a row before this one.
It takes so long, but it's not. You want the double digits, so maybe Son is the possible outside play.
And they're a little tricky too because you can see 3 matches in a row, 3 attacking returns before this blank. And yet no bonus in any of those matches, right? And so that does get to the other problem of the kind of old school, back when Man City were scoring 4 or 5 goals a match, you kind of needed to have KDB or, Guerrero. And if you had it was always tempting to get a Bernardo Silva type player, right? Because they'd always be one of the cheapest options in there, or David Silva, I suppose, back when he was there. And, but often they would get 1 attack in return and no bonus, right? And so it was like you're like, is this worth 7.5 million or whatever? And so maybe we are a little bit there with Solanke. I think the problem is, I don't know. I mean, like, what about Brennan Johnson, Dave? I mean, you're a Spurs supporter. Like,
he's been
cheap.
He's been great. Yeah, he's on fire. That could be a pick. But again, it's the price thing. You're just like, well, he's not. I don't mean to be down, but like, who's exciting to bring in? It's like he's so cheap, he's almost not exciting. You're like, I have 5 million in the bank.
I know.
Like,
I know.
That's not fun.
I know.
Just psychologically. So, but maybe that is the move.
I know. I think it's one of the reasons I didn't bring him in this week either. I just couldn't get excited enough about it.
If Brennan Johnson was 10.2, we'd all have him.
Yeah, that's funny. That's so true. Isn't that funny the way that works sometimes? I know, it's so true.
And I don't know, Palmer. Still the fixtures are not great. I think I'll give a shout out to the content creators of saying,
Thank you.
Palmer's banging them in, but the fixtures are going to turn. So is he really a buy? And he hasn't. And it's been tough. It's because fixtures create points. So
I mean, and he's still okay. He took 4 shots today. He had a big chance in the first half, I think, or biggish chance. I mean, it was a big chance for him. I don't, maybe for a lesser player, that's a low percentage chance. But he did this was always going to be a really tough match for him. And I think Newcastle at home, I'd actually be very surprised if we didn't get some kind of attack in return in that one. But you guys sort of, we glossed over Watkins for a second. I mean, I do think that there is some potential there. The question is, I guess, like, let's say you were scared off of Foden, but maybe you do want to drop Saliba this week ahead of the run. Could you maybe go, I don't know how much, it depends how much money you have in the bank already, but a move that was like Watkins to, Lewis, for example. Excuse me. Let me start this.
Where are we going?
Saliba to Lewis.
That's a big.
Saliba to Lewis would free up 1.5 million roughly. Yeah. I think somewhere in that, maybe a little less than that, actually, maybe like 1.2 million now. And maybe then you could go Chris Wood or somebody. So, whoever your third forward is, you could upgrade to Watkins, and that wouldn't be terrible. I mean,
but then after this week, Watkins has Spurs away, Liverpool away, Chelsea away, 3 in the next 4.
Wow.
After Bournemouth, so he's almost like a get off. I was actually looking at the Solanke move
to drop.
So I don't know. He's like a hold for this week, but after that, I don't know.
Yeah, Villa have a home fixture midweek on Tuesday against Bologna for the Champions League. Certainly,
so that goes in pork as well, or
Goodison Pork.
yeah. There's some distance between Villa Pork and Goodison Pork, but the pork pies are stronger through that entire corridor.
That's the Bologna scran.
Yeah, try the fried Bologna sandwich. Certainly, I'm holding my transfers until we see those Champions League.
Yeah, what are the fixtures this week in the Champions League?
So you've got Villa hosting Bologna.
You always get so emotional.
Yeah, it looks like that's the only Premier League club that's playing on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, you've got Man City hosting Sparta Praha. Liverpool away, RB Leipzig,
Tricky match.
which may be the trickiest of them. Let's see. I'm just hunting around for the Arsenal Champions League fixture.
I agree with you.
Maybe I missed it.
As if following Champions League in America wasn't hard enough because we're all working.
Yeah.
This new structure is diabolical.
I know.
These fixtures are crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Cannot follow it.
It's like it's a mix of one of the most difficult fixtures you can imagine, or the easiest fixture you've played all season.
Yeah,
it's
like, are we sure that's
Arsenal? Arsenal hosts Shakhtar Donetsk on Tuesday. So Villa and Arsenal both home on Tuesday, and then City and Liverpool on Wednesday.
And
so
should have Europa League as well, right? On Thursday.
Yeah, So let's see. I'm really Man United are away at Fenerbahce on Thursday, hunting around here for let's see, blah 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 blah.
It's right there.
Blah blah blah.
Go up a little bit.
Spurs.
Easy Akmar.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Thank you for finding that and reading that. Chelsea are away in Greece at Panathinaikos, but as discussed with Cole Palmer, he's not even on their roster for.
Oh, he's still not on the? Okay.
No, I don't think they submit a new roster until they get out of the group stage of the competition. So he's free and easy. I mean, it's interesting you bring up, like, Palmer is such a difficult player to not own right now because he is that guy. But they have bad fixtures. When is the right moment to get him? I do feel like the Newcastle fixture is good enough to just go for Palmer. And I'm considering ways to downgrade Saliba or another player in my 11 to upgrade Anthony Gordon to Palmer. That would probably require actually 3 transfers. So would not take a -4 just to get Palmer in the midst of this run, but I do feel like that is a great fixture.
Or you could downgrade Salah, because as we saw today, his returns are totally fluky, and you got lucky. So
that's true. Yeah, can't beat.
I got lucky playing the variance with the variance game with him as he moves into
unsustainable,
ninth place in all-time Premier League goal scorer.
What would you guys do if you had? What would you guys do if you had Diaz?
Get rid of him.
It's
I think so too.
He's off the boil.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because there's another international break coming up in November, it does seem like you and I, Brandon, were talking about this morning. Arnslot does seem like a manager who's going to use the whole squad. I mean, outside Salah is like one of those players. He's like the Saka, he's a movable. He also came back early from the international break, which made it even easier. But I think it does. He basically, as we are now seeing it for real, right? Which is there are 4 players for 5 slots in front. We'll see about Jota. He went off, injured.
Could solve that too.
But either way, and Cody Gakpo I thought was pretty. Gakpo I thought was kind of irrelevant.
He was very quiet. Yeah. Darwin came on and put himself about. He was like Mr. Dark Arts against Chelsea this weekend. But I thought that Liverpool benefited from that. He was kind of distracted some of the Chelsea defenders. So as far as Slot saw it, I think he would be pleased with Darwin's performance.
Yeah. Salah could work his way behind him, it seemed like, when he was pushing up front. It was good for him.
And what about you, Brendan, in terms of your transfers?
Yeah, so I think if I look at my squad, the problem players are Saliba with the red card, and I feel like I'm good going without Arsenal defense right now. I thought it feels like a coupon that the league gave us. I was telling you this, Josh, where when that wild card turn happened around game week 6, that was when Raya and Gabriel was scoring his set piece goals, looked unstoppable. Raya was getting lots of FPL returns as well. And then people moved off of Saliba to get those guys. And that there is the double Arsenal defense, because we didn't wildcard at that time. We still had Saliba. So now we're in a position to just, like, for free, basically just get off of the Arsenal defense train while they go through this rough batch of fixtures. But if you have Raya and Gabriel, I'm not sure you can find a good enough reason to get rid of them. So
certainly not right. And the thing is, once they get past this trio of rough fixtures, it's a fantastic run for them.
Right. So you kind of just have to weather the storm, even if it will be a storm. We don't know. Arsenal are good enough to certainly clean sheet in any fixture. So it's really Saliba and Gordon, and I need to just look at more options in terms of downgrading Saliba. Does that open up something more interesting for Gordon to become?
Right. Because if you let's say you did like one of the cheapest options, which was you turned Saliba, is around 6 million, into maybe a little more or less into like Mikolenko, who's 4.3. That would open up. That would free up 1.7 million for you.
Yeah. It's still not enough for me to turn Anthony Gordon into Palmer.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's enough for me to turn Havertz into Ollie Watkins. So, and Havertz, I guess, is the tertiary
Right.
player on the bubble for me, where
Yeah.
even though he's had a good run, he's been great for Arsenal this season.
Yeah.
I think, given the shape that Arsenal team is in, they're probably not going to be scoring 3 or 4 goals anytime soon.
Although, as Dave said, the run for Watkins gets worse after game week 9. So it's probably not. It feels like long term, probably not. Like that's a transfer that it's hard to like net out super ahead on that. You know,
if Havertz plays 90 in midweek and the team looks a little ragged, Havertz might move closer to my maybe he gets turned into Watkins plan. But Watkins has the same midweek week issue. So I've got a lot of sort of balls in the air here.
Yeah.
The other sort of elephant in the room for me is wild card. But that to me, wild card is all about how I'm going to do premium asset structure.
Right.
And I think still optimally, assuming everyone's healthy, it feels like Haaland plus Saka plus Palmer. And I feel like I want a wild card in order to get that. And there are too many things in motion right now.
Yeah, it's not a good, doesn't feel like a good week to make that. Put a stake in the ground for
No,
like what premiums you want.
I think in 2 weeks' time, when Arsenal's fixture run gets really good, that is a great time for you to wild card, because you could go to 3 options, right? And you'd be sort of it'd be a good time to reset a little bit. As far as my team, just because I've got it pulled up here, I'll pick my team for next week.
27 points. That's brutal.
Yeah, I know. I'm telling you, bud. It's been a rough run.
You should start putting out some fake info to help your.
I know exactly. Yeah. So this is my squad right now for game week 9. It looks okay. You know, it's like it's an acceptable squad. Like if I had to do nothing, I would actually be okay with that. Like if I were Dave, I would probably just save my transfer and have 3. But you know, I think there might be an opportunity here, because I do have 2 transfers to change things around a little bit. I think it really feels like it's kind of last chance City for Eze. I would really like to see him do something in Monday's match to feel confident in holding on to him. I mean, I think I mean, who do Palace host Spurs. I mean, it's honestly not a bad fixture for him, but so like that doesn't feel like the most urgent issue. It would be great to get another Man City asset, and so I could look at something as simple as Saliba to Gvardiol would be an option. I guess in that case, I'd probably bench Robinson. I don't know. You know, it's like maybe hold one of my other transfers. That might be a possible move. Vardy, I would like to drop eventually, but I don't necessarily need to do that. I mean, Trent away to Arsenal, like not great, but probably fine. Like it's not something that I'm like, again, no one's keeping clean sheets. So, so moving, like wasting a lot of money on defenders feels, which I know kind of undermines my Gvardiol point, but because it's Southampton, they've been so bad this season, you could make an argument for that. Like there's the upside is there for Gvardiol. There's a chance of like a 15-point level return. And that's something worth shooting for. So, I mean, I don't know, you guys looking at my squad, does anything else stand out to you as like an urgent? Not having Saka remains a big problem, but I think I can fix that in a couple of weeks.
I don't think that's a problem right now.
Yeah, not for the Liverpool, not for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't want necessarily want them right now. So
yeah.
No, I think to your point, your weakest links are pretty like luxury moves. So
it's your bench that might be the weakest link with the Greaves injury and the Saliba suspension. You have no defenders to rotate or cover.
Or something like that.
So, but you know, you wouldn't look to upgrade Greaves to a
serious hamstring injury. He's out for a month. My goodness.
Yeah, so
that could be mind games.
That's true. Who knows? Yeah. Usually those things are like based on like a literal comment from a manager. It's like, oh, a few weeks time, we'll see him.
I do subscribe, Brandon, though, to the theory of if you lose a defender, you're losing a maximum of 2 points because none of them score anyways.
Right.
So
But and maybe that's the secret benefit. So the up to 5 free transfers, you talk about that like a mini wild card. Well, it's actually an interesting strategy for fixing your bench, because if you need to fix your bench and you have 1 or 2 free transfers, you're kind of limited in what you can do, and you often make compromises in terms of how creative you can be. If you had 3 or 4 transfers, you really fix your bench and do something interesting with 1 or 2 starting players. So I think you can weather a benching storm for like, one game.
If I look at my squad right now, and you sort of look at my 11, and I just were to swap out Robinson for Gvardiol, then I'd have a squad that I really liked for game week. And I know, like, for podcast listeners, they are not looking at my squad right now, but it's a pretty, it's I've got Watkins, Haaland, Vardy up front, Mbomo, Rogers, Palmer, Eze. Again, all fine, right? And then Eze, I don't know, like, arguable, but like, Spurs are just like conceding goals for fun. So like, it feels like that's a match where he could do something. It's almost baked into their approach, right? Henderson, but I'm not going to waste a transfer on a keeper. And then Konsa's fine. Even Robinson would be okay. I just don't really expect Fulham to keep a clean sheet in that match. Although they did away to Forest in a kind of similar match a few weeks ago. So
yeah, average not the most consistent. So,
yeah, exactly. So that's where I am. Let's wrap things up here with just a couple of questions. Shane asked about thoughts on defender strategy. I think we covered that already. So Sam C asked about, it says Salah with more points than Haaland. He says by the time this match finishes and almost 3 million cheaper, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Salah as expensive as he is 3 million cheaper than Haaland. Can we swerve Haaland and have some extra cash to spread around? Of course, I blame the content creator Cartel for not telling me Salah is good. Yeah, that is a joke. But okay, so let's say after Southampton, kind of regardless of what Haaland does, is it time to consider moving him on, or are we just rearranging deck chairs trying to find the right premium?
Yeah, Salah is good. I don't know what to say. Like we saw today, we're just like, is he really a buy watching that match? He's gonna get pens, sure, and assists, and I don't know. You'll take along, but I don't know. Like,
he had no clear cut. I'm talking over you, Dave, here, but I've got a really interesting point to make.
I was looking at you for your feedback.
Salah had no clear cut goal scoring opportunities in open play. It was the pen, and then he was creating chances for his teammates. I still think he's below Palmer, Saka, and Haaland on the premium asset list.
All right. I think so. I think it's pretty tight between all four of them. Again, the other strategy that I could do this week, and maybe I'll give it a little more thought, would be to just keep saving transfers and stick to my guns and ultimately downgrade Saliba and Trent and try to turn Eze into Saka, which would give me Saka, Palmer, Haaland, and allow me to kind of stick to my guns in this idea that you just want 3 out of 4 of these premium assets. So that would be one option too. I'd have to do a little investigating how honestly, I could actually get Rico Lewis, and that might be enough if I turned Saliba into Lewis, Trent into like a 4.5. That probably would be enough for me to turn Eze into Saka. So that's another possibility too. All right, so final questions from Aloha Lounge. She says, has Foden done enough to prove to Pep that he needs to start?
No. No.
Historically, or like, it's like, who knows? How do you prove you're over long COVID, Dave? You've been long COVID for 4 years now. You tell me. No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't make light of
we haven't seen how Pep's shirts look after Foden has ironed them. I assume this is how you prove your value to Guardiola. It's the little things like picking up the dry cleaning and sort of like washing the dishes and that sort of thing. How good is the tea that Foden is brewing there in the staff cafeteria?
Well, I slept through the game, so you guys tell me how he looked. But Foden,
he didn't start for one.
Yeah, well, that's not a good sign. Yeah, so he's not. Yeah.
And he didn't influence the game at all after coming on, apart from taking a well-taken corner to deliver the John Stones goal. So
but that goes also back to the Haaland question of, okay, then what City asset are we just not having City players? Like it just seems crazy. And then what's the alternative? Like premium assets, and there's not like super ones this week. So that's why I just feel like keeping Haaland is just sensical, but I'm open to it, I guess.
Weren't we podcasting like months ago about like you can't have everybody? Everyone's so good, and now we're going through this like ebb where it's like no one's quite there
but
at the moment.
With the fixtures, that's it just so happens we're in a sort of transition week with fixtures too. So
I guess I'm gonna actually be in 28 points, Brandon. Once I get that Robinson point subbed in,
there you go.
Things are looking up for old Josh Landon all of a sudden. Vardy somehow nicked a bonus point.
Good.
While we were talking today.
Good.
He has gained a bonus point. When is this happening this year? All of a sudden, these bonus points.
So Josh is a good actor. I see the DMs open with FPL Towers negotiating the extra bonus point for his Vardy pump and dump scheme.
I know. With this, yellow cards get punished too much in this game, in my opinion. There's too many punishments.
Oh, you want to talk about BPS scoring system?
Yeah. Oh, that's everyone's favorite topic, right? All right. So I think
end the stream.
Yeah. All right. So I think that I had one final question for you guys, which was basically we talked a little bit about Lewis. We talked a little bit about Guardiola, a little bit of Foden. Are there any other? I mean, because the Southampton match is obviously a fantastic match. Are there any other possible fantasy assets on Man City? I know they're the Champions League as a factor, and then but let's say that we kind of get a predictable Champions League 11. Is there anybody?
I think you've named plenty. That's all we need.
Okay, but being like there's no because I mean there could be
defenders or
is there any edge in any or even other defenders? Because I'm just curious. Is there any edge to be gained from picking someone who's off the table?
Foden is the choice, and he's not a choice.
You'll talk yourself into getting Bernardo Silva or Doku, and these are paths to pain.
Yeah. I guess you're right. All right, so there we are, I think that's it. I think we can wrap this up, guys.
Yes.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for listening. I gotta pull up my my running order again. We've never done a more chaotic pod stream, but I think we hit it.
We nailed it.
Yeah, we totally nailed it. But thanks everyone for listening. And go to patreon.com/alwayscheating to support the podcast once again. And just because I've got it here, Brendan, I'll do our producer thank yous here. Oh my gosh, it's all in one column. This is going to take me a minute to pull the microphone over. Oh my goodness, I messed up the. There we go. Let's see if I can. Why is it's stuck? You did that.
We rigged it.
No, I'm undoing the rigging. I'm undoing the rigging here. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you to Mike DePietro, Trevor Angerson, Dave Wagner-Lodahl, our buddy Chris David. You're right there. Our buddy Chris Howell, Andy Penn, Nick Wright, Lazarus Llanos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr. By the way, Chris Howell, great win for Tennessee yesterday. Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Babas Kuhn, Rom Frost, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons, Terrence O'Donnell, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner as he does it, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Craig Jackson, Kalev Robbie, Brian Clark, Tomas Tislov, Froda Jacobson, The Saint, Gareth H., Shalin F. Kadakia, Rishi Nigam, Noah Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Venerstrom, Matthew Skinner, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Ruin Sandberg, James Murray Wood. He's part of the three Jameses, Brandon. The James Murray Wood, James C., James Holland, three Jameses and a Jack, and Craig at our favorite tutoring site, Total Maths Tutoring. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening to the podcast. If you are new to the YouTube stream or you are listening to the podcast and you want to check it out, you can go to youtube.com/@alwayscheating. Yeah, /@alwayscheating. Or you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or you can email us, yalecheaters@gmail.com, or you can support the podcast and get on our Discord at patreon.com/alwayscheating. Thanks again for everyone for listening. Thank you to Brandon and Dave for joining me here in Brooklyn. Guys, do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to say?
Happy trails. Dave?
Hail cheaters. Like and subscribe.
Hail cheaters. Thanks, guys. Bye.